Hi friends, my name is host Eric and I'm here today to talk to you about agent subject object. So one area in which I've had some difficulty in correctly figuring out what's going on is in what I call the aspects. It seems clear to me that something like NI or SI has functions in both real time and in turn-based time. And yet I couldn't quite understand why that would be given that it's implicitly a function of metaphysics. uh, why would it have a real time? Why would it so clearly have a real time application like that? Just like SI clearly has a turn based application, so I can feel in real time the pleasure of taking a bath, or I can keep track of appointments and or um, remember to feed myself, things like that. Keep track of when I've last eaten and stuff like that. So the the conclusion I've drawn after some thinking is it's almost certainly something like this. Each of these functions has a kind of function that it is. Agent functions are those functions that link to observation. Subject functions are those functions that link to action. And object functions are those functions that link to uh, being being the receiver of action, basically. Okay, so let's look at this then. These here, see the square: internal metaphysical, external metaphysical, internal physical, external physical. This is how I think it probably works. So with a function, so these are your three kinds of functions or three kinds of perspectives through which one might note a or attend to or via a given function. So then it's also the case that there are some functions that are agent functions, therefore, which are functions which link specifically to observation, what one observes, rather than one's um, actions, really. Because I think ultimately, while we think of agency as linking to the capacity to take independent action, an agent is distinct in that it observes. NE and SE are definitely subject functions. FE and TE, I think, are probably subject functions as well, because I think both object and agent are two halves of object and agent, basically, or two halves of agency. So then, of course, the object functions are going to be your TI and your FI because um, it's parsing what is rather than what rather than creating what is or knowing what is. So if NI, but this is the notion here, is NI and SI behave differently. NI is naturally an agent function in these two capacities here on both the metaphysical planes. It's naturally a subject function on the external physical plane, and it's naturally an object function on the on the internal physical plane. Whereas SI plays out somewhat differently in that it is naturally an agent on the both the internal planes. It's a subject here on the external metaphysical plane, and it'll be an object here in external physical. And if you think about it, this makes good sense. So, um, using my past stories to tell you something, tell a story about myself, is a good example of SI manifesting as in a subject capacity or in support of a subject capacity um, here and not here. Uh, and similarly, NI is in support of a subject capacity here and not here. Let's say on the external physical plane, SI on the external physical metaphysical plane represents the things you can use, ammunition you can fire with your extroverted intuition. You can take action to put information on the external metaphysical field with your extroverted intuition, and it will link most easily and naturally with SI. So then SI is an object here on the external physical field, and it's clearly an object in that regard. In other words, here on the external physical field, you can punch me. You can make me literally an object. So this is what I'm thinking for SI and NI. So NI agency occurs on the two metaphysical fields. It means you can make observations with your NI, about stuff that is inside your head. You can make, but most often you're making probably observations about stuff that's here in the external metaphysical field. Um, if you're here in the external physical field and you're linking with NI, then it's probably timing, like when should I shoot the arrow? And if you're here, internal physical field with NI, then it's an object, which is to say, on your internal physical field, uh, NI truths come to die. All the NI truths in the world doesn't matter a damn bit if you got bad cramps, right? So yeah, that's my notion. I haven't done it for the other functions. I'm not sure, but I think that that's worth uploading as is there, and to get everybody else's ideation going on this as well, based on that basic notion that you'll probably have it naturally attain in its most native kind of um, perspective. That is to say, there's going to be two capacities in which it naturally manifests in its most native capacity, and one in its less native capacities. So for me, Fi is, which is an object function. Well, it's regardless, slot mechanics has something to do with it too. It's complicated, I guess. I don't know, but that's what I got for you right now. I think it helps clarify something.